You don't need more information. You need foundation. Let's begin with a truth that most people never consider. The average person today has more access to knowledge than the kings of ancient times. You have YouTube in your pocket, TED Talks at your fingertips, millions of books one click away. You scroll through quotes about success, mindset, wealth, and discipline every single day. Yet, despite this flood of knowledge, you still feel stuck, unclear, unmotivated, undisciplined, frustrated. Why? Because information without foundation is like building a mansion on sand. It might look impressive at first, but one storm and it collapses. What you truly need is not more motivation, not another course, not another productivity hack. What you need is unshakable principles, a compass that never changes with the trends, a code to live by when your emotions fail you, a structure that holds you up when inspiration runs dry. That's exactly what the book of Proverbs offers. It's not just an ancient text. It's a masterclass in mental, emotional, and spiritual mastery. It's raw, brutal truth about how life really works, from the inside out. And guess what? That same kind of wisdom, though wrapped in different language, shows up in the teachings of Napoleon Hill. He didn't call it scripture. He didn't quote verses. But he studied the patterns of thousands of successful people and came to the same conclusion. There is a power greater than yourself. It responds to discipline, clarity, and belief. He called it infinite intelligence. And Proverbs calls it the fear of the Lord, not fear in the sense of panic, but in the sense of profound respect for truth, law, order, and wisdom greater than your own understanding. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Proverbs 9:10. What does this mean in practical terms? It means aligning your actions with a higher standard. It means choosing integrity over shortcuts, discipline over comfort, clarity over chaos, truth over emotional noise. Because here's the uncomfortable reality. Most people don't fail for lack of desire. They fail because their inner structure is weak. They build dreams on emotional sand, moods, hype, wishful thinking, and expect long-term success. But anything built on a shaky foundation eventually collapses. You can fake motivation. You can copy tactics. But you cannot fake alignment. You cannot cheat your internal architecture. If your thoughts are scattered, your values unclear, your habits reactive, no amount of hustle will save you. That's why wisdom must come first. That's why foundation precedes elevation. That's why Proverbs begins with reverence. Not strategy, not marketing, not goal setting, but reverence for something higher. And this is where you must begin too. So stop asking, what's the next big thing? Ask instead, what do I truly believe in? What truth will I commit to, even when no one's watching? What values will I embody when the feelings fade? Because once your foundation is built on wisdom, not emotion, on principle, not popularity, on character, not chaos, then, and only then, will everything else begin to shift. This isn't a race. It's a reconstruction. And it starts with tearing down the false supports you've been leaning on, so you can build something real. You'll never lead your life until you learn to lead yourself. Let's be honest. The greatest threat to your progress has never been the economy. It's not your boss, not your family, not the government. The real enemy is the version of you that refuses to grow. It's the part of you that hits snooze when you should be building. The part that scrolls for hours instead of preparing for the future. The part that says, just one more time, when you already know that habit is destroying you. And the part that quits every time things stop being convenient. Self-sabotage doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't break you in a day. It bleeds you over time. That's why Solomon, in all his wisdom, didn't just talk about knowledge. He talked about self-governance. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. Proverbs 25:28. In the ancient world, a city without walls was a joke, an open target. Anyone could walk in and burn it down. And that's what your life becomes when you lack discipline. One insult can wreck your day. One temptation can derail your focus. One emotion can ruin a year of progress. Napoleon Hill put it this way: self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. If you do not control what you think, you cannot control what you do. And here's what most people don't want to hear. Real discipline is invisible. It doesn't happen on stage. It's what you do when no one's watching. It's saying no when no one would blame you for saying yes. It's showing up for yourself, even when no one else does. It's doing the right thing when there's no reward, no recognition, and no audience. We glorify passion, creativity, even motivation. But let's be clear, none of that means anything without consistency. And consistency only comes from self-command, from being the kind of person who doesn't let their emotions hijack their actions. The problem is that many of us are good at starting, but terrible at staying. We get excited for a few days, then vanish. We promise ourselves we'll change, but never follow through. And we call that failure, but it's really just a lack of self-leadership. You don't need more time. You don't need a new planner. You need to become someone who doesn't negotiate with their excuses anymore. Because when you truly begin to govern yourself, your thoughts, your energy, your emotions, your habits, you become powerful in a way that no degree, no network, and no motivational speech can give you. And here's the truth: no empire was ever built by someone who couldn't rule their own mind. No great vision was ever executed by someone who couldn't control their own appetite. And no legacy was ever written by someone who gave up at the first sign of resistance. So ask yourself this: what kind of leader are you being for your own life? Are you the protector of your purpose or the saboteur? Are you the architect of your growth or the excuse maker? Are you building walls that keep out destruction? Or are you living exposed, vulnerable, and fragile? Because in the end, your external success will never outgrow your internal leadership. Build the walls, guard the gates, train the mind, master the impulses. That's where your real power begins. If you don't know where you're going, life will decide for you. Most people don't lack ambition. They lack direction. And because they have no direction, they end up chasing everything and catching nothing. They move from one project to another, one goal to another, one identity to another, always running, always tired, always starting over. Not because they're lazy, but because they're unclear. And clarity is a superpower. Without it, your energy gets diluted, your time gets wasted, your efforts become noise, loud, exhausting, but unproductive. This is why Proverbs says, "In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." Proverbs 3:6. Point 6, notice the condition here. In all your ways acknowledge him. That means intention. That means alignment. That means recognizing that your path doesn't become clear by accident. It becomes clear through focus and faith. You cannot drift your way to destiny. You cannot improvise your way into a legacy. At some point, you have to decide, this is where I'm going, and then live like it, consistently, unapologetically, and relentlessly. Napoleon Hill called this definiteness of purpose, the one quality shared by every successful person he studied. There is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it. Without that, your energy gets hijacked by distractions. You say yes to things that don't matter. You tolerate situations that don't align. You let emotions, trends, people, and moods steer your ship. But with purpose, real, defined purpose, your life becomes laser-focused. You stop wasting time on dead ends. You stop asking for permission. You stop being tossed around by your emotions. And let's be real, life will make decisions for you if you don't make them first. You will end up in places you never intended, surrounded by things you never wanted, wondering how it all got so off course. So the question is not, do I want to be successful? The real question is, what am I willing to define, commit to, and protect no matter what? Because clarity is more than vision. It's responsibility. It's spiritual alignment. It's a declaration to God, to yourself, and to the world that you are no longer available for mediocrity or confusion. So how do you get clear? You stop running from silence. You stop hiding behind busyness. You unplug from the noise and ask the hard questions. Who am I becoming? What have I been avoiding? What's the direction that aligns with my highest values? And when you hear the answer, you walk that path, even if it's narrow, even if it's lonely, even if it costs you comfort, because the alternative is drifting, wandering, wasting years. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. Proverbs 16:3. Don't confuse movement with progress. Don't mistake chaos for creativity. Don't let the world write your map. Purpose gives you direction. Direction gives you power. And power, when grounded in principle, changes everything. Wisdom isn't just for growth. It's for protection. Let's get something straight. Success isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about knowing what to avoid. And in a world filled with noise, manipulation, and emotional traps, you need more than ambition. You need discernment. The wrong decision can cost you years. The wrong relationship can break your spirit. The wrong voice in your ear can derail your purpose. That's why Proverbs doesn't just celebrate wisdom. It warns about the cost of ignoring it. Wisdom is supreme, so get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Proverbs 4:7. Think about that. Though it cost all you have. Why would it cost everything? Because wisdom isn't convenience, it's sacrifice. It requires saying no when your flesh wants yes. It requires walking away when your ego wants validation. It requires thinking long-term when your emotions scream for shortcuts. Napoleon Hill made a similar observation after decades of research. The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. These few are the Fords, the Carnegies, the Edisons. What separates those few? It's not just willpower, it's wisdom. They don't just fight harder, they choose smarter. They see through the noise, they discern patterns, they avoid battles that don't matter, and they win the ones that do. Wisdom gives you the ability to read situations before they explode. It gives you the insight to pause instead of react. It trains you to observe before you trust. It helps you listen between the lines. And more than anything, wisdom teaches you this: not everything that feels good is good. Not everything that shines is gold. And not everyone who claps for you is on your side. You need that kind of awareness in your life. Not to become paranoid, but to become sharp. Because a wise mind is not just intelligent, it's armed, it's guarded. It doesn't fall for the same trap twice. It doesn't enter rooms it wasn't meant to be in. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 22:3. And that's the difference between the wise and the foolish. The fool keeps crashing into the same wall and calls it bad luck. The wise person steps back, recalibrates, and moves with strategy. Wisdom gives you that space between impulse and action, that breath before the mistake. Hill warned about emotional impulsiveness too. He said most people fail not because they lacked opportunity, but because they acted too quickly, trusted too easily, or moved without thinking. Let's be honest, that's not just them, that's us. We've all rushed in. We've all ignored red flags. We've all paid the price of acting without wisdom. But today is different, because now you know. Wisdom protects what discipline builds. So train your mind, feed your spirit, Ask hard questions, value silence, and above all, stop calling mistakes destiny when they were actually just decisions made without discernment. Your words are writing your future, one sentence at a time. If there's one truth you need to tattoo on your soul, it's this: you are speaking your life into existence, whether you realize it or not. The way you talk about yourself, the stories you repeat, the labels you accept, the phrases you throw around like they mean nothing. They're building something, or they're breaking something. And here's what Proverbs says about it. Not softly, but with fire. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Proverbs 18:21. Life and death, not discomfort and convenience, not good and bad. Life and death. This is not metaphor. This is mechanism. Your words are not just sound. They are software, programming your subconscious, shaping your identity, building your beliefs. And Napoleon Hill saw the same thing, long before neuroscience could prove it. He called it autosuggestion. Through repeated affirmations, the mind begins to translate those words into belief, and belief into action. In other words, what you tell yourself becomes what you believe. What you believe becomes how you behave, and how you behave becomes the life you create. So let me ask you something. What have you been telling yourself lately? I'll never figure this out. That's just how I am. Nothing ever works out for me. It's too late for me. People like me don't succeed. Each of these may sound casual, harmless, even honest, but they are not honest. They are destructive. They are emotional graffiti on the walls of your mind, and you have the power to repaint them. Now imagine saying this instead. I'm learning every day. I have the power to change. I'm committed to growth, even when it's slow. My story is not over. Said, I speak life into my future. These are not magic spells. They are mental scaffolding. They give structure to your mindset. They stabilize your focus. They reroute your emotional responses. But here's the key. They only work if you back them with action. Words without action are lies you tell yourself to feel better. Words with action become weapons for change. So don't just say the right things. Live them. Let your schedule reflect your new story. Let your habits echo your new identity. Let your standards rise to meet your declarations. And yes, this takes practice, repetition, intention. You've spent years rehearsing the wrong narrative. You're not going to rewrite it overnight, but you can start today, one sentence at a time. And here's a deeper truth. You already believe something, so make sure it's something worth believing. Because if your words don't align with your purpose, they will anchor you to your past. If your self-talk doesn't match your goals, your progress will self-destruct. So be careful what you say. Be mindful of what you repeat. And above all, speak to yourself like someone who is becoming, not someone who's already defeated. Your words are either giving your future oxygen, or they're slowly suffocating it. Consistency doesn't look heroic, but it builds everything that matters. Let's cut through the hype. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they're inconsistent. They quit when it gets boring. They stop when no one's watching. They only act when they feel like it, and that feeling rarely lasts. The truth is, success is not sexy. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's repetitive. It's quiet. It's inconvenient. It looks a lot more like discipline than inspiration. That's why Proverbs says, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Proverbs 10:4. Notice the connection, not between brilliance and wealth, or passion and wealth, but diligence and wealth. And what is diligence? It's not working hard for 3 days straight and then crashing. It's not waiting for motivation to strike. It's not burning out for applause. It's the steady, committed, often unseen work of doing what needs to be done. Even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when no one applauds. Napoleon Hill had a name for it too: controlled effort. Effort in itself is useless. unless it is controlled and directed toward a definite end. In other words, scattered hustle doesn't produce fruit. Focused discipline does. Think of the ant, the tiny creature Solomon used as an example. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. Proverbs 6:6-8. The ant doesn't need a manager. It doesn't need deadlines. It doesn't need validation. It works because it knows the winter is coming. And that mindset, that anticipation, that internal drive, is what separates those who survive from those who thrive. Now ask yourself, are you living like the ant, or waiting for someone to push you? Because the ones who succeed aren't always the fastest or the smartest. They're the ones who keep showing up. They build in silence. They don't complain about the dirt. They just keep planting, watering, preparing. And when the harvest comes, no one sees the nights they stayed up. No one sees the sacrifices. No one sees the moments they wanted to quit, but didn't. But the results speak for themselves. Proverbs says again, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." Proverbs 21:5. Did you catch that? Haste leads to poverty. Not just financial poverty, but emotional, spiritual, relational. Why? Because haste is reactionary. Diligence is intentional. One is driven by fear. The other is rooted in vision. Napoleon Hill warned of this too. He said the most common form of failure is quitting too soon. He called it the great killer of dreams. The moment when things get hard, progress slows, and emotions take over. But if you stay the course, if you build the habit of showing up even when it's hard, if you embrace the silence, the repetition, the quiet grind, you'll wake up one day surrounded by results that speak louder than any motivation video ever could. Because real wealth, in every sense of the word, is born from what you do when no one's clapping. Not all wealth is worth having. Some of it will cost you your soul. We live in a world obsessed with image, with looking rich, sounding successful, flexing lifestyles that may or may not be real. But here's what no one wants to admit. Not all success is created equal, and not all wealth is a blessing. Some wealth brings peace. Some wealth brings pressure. Some builds. Some burns. Proverbs makes this distinction powerfully. The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, without painful toil for it. Proverbs 10:22. Read that again, slowly. There's a kind of wealth that brings joy, rest, and freedom. And there's a kind that looks shiny on the outside, but rots everything on the inside. Napoleon Hill saw this in real life. He interviewed millionaires who had everything money could buy, but no peace, no relationships, no integrity. They built empires and lost themselves in the process. Riches, when gained at the cost of peace of mind or moral decay, are a form of poverty in disguise. Hill paraphrased from multiple teachings. So now we have to ask, what kind of wealth are you building? Is it fast money, built on burnout and image? Or is it long-term abundance, built on purpose, wisdom, and peace? Because if your version of success destroys your health, poisons your relationships, and drains your soul, that's not wealth. That's a trap with a gold wrapper. Now, let's flip the script. Proverbs 8:18 speaks from the perspective of wisdom itself. With me are riches and honor, enduring wealth and prosperity. Not fast wealth, enduring wealth, not popularity. Honor, not hype. Prosperity rooted in principle. This is the kind of wealth that doesn't vanish with a market crash. It doesn't require pretending. It doesn't compromise who you are. It's the kind of wealth you sleep well with, the kind you pass down, the kind that grows from the inside out. And here's the real power. You don't have to chase it. You attract it when your values and actions are aligned, when you operate with integrity, when you do the hard work no one sees, not for applause, but because it's right. That's what Napoleon Hill meant by riches of enduring value. They're not just in your bank account. They're in your mind, your health, your relationships, your legacy. So again, what are you building? A bank balance that makes strangers jealous? Or a life that makes your future self proud? A reputation built on noise? Or a legacy built on principles? Because here's the truth. The world respects what shines, but God honors what's solid. And what's solid doesn't crumble when the storm hits. Whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf. Proverbs 11:28. You can lose the money. You can lose the house. You can lose the followers. But if your foundation is righteousness, if your heart is wise, you will rise again. That's wealth that can't be stolen. That's abundance that doesn't expire. And that's what you were meant to build. Big lives are built by small choices, over and over again. It's easy to romanticize success, to imagine it coming from some big break, a single moment of glory, a lightning bolt of luck. But real success doesn't arrive like that. It's constructed, slowly, quietly, by thousands of invisible decisions. Wake up or hit snooze. Speak with faith or complain again. Invest or spend. Scroll or study. React emotionally or respond wisely. These don't feel life-changing, but they are. Because every decision is a seed, and what you plant daily is what you'll harvest later. In your habits, your mindset, your finances, your relationships, your legacy. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Proverbs 4:26. Solomon is not being poetic here. He's being strategic. Think before you step. Walk with awareness, because one misstep repeated daily becomes a trap, and one wise step repeated daily becomes a path to freedom. Napoleon Hill echoed the same truth. You are the master of your earthly destiny, because you have the power to control your thoughts. But here's the twist. You don't control your life all at once. You control it moment by moment, in how you think, speak, choose, and act every single day. And those moments add up. They become patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become character. And character becomes destiny. So stop looking for a magic button. Start looking at your next decision. Because success is not something you leap into. It's something you grow into, with patience, with discipline, and with conscious choices repeated consistently. Proverbs 21:5 puts it plainly. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. In other words, slow, steady, focused action wins. Not rush, not panic, not random hustle. And here's something most people miss. Haste isn't just about moving quickly. It's about moving without thinking. It's acting from impulse instead of wisdom. It's reacting instead of leading. Hill warned that impulsiveness is one of the greatest enemies of success, not just in business, but in mindset, in relationships, in every area where you need stability to grow. So the next time you face a fork in the road, a choice that seems small, stop and breathe. Ask yourself, what direction is this really taking me? Am I acting from vision or from emotion? Will my future self thank me for this decision? Because your daily decisions are laying bricks for a palace or a prison. You are not at the mercy of fate. You are not stuck in your story. You are one wise choice away from a better direction. So make that choice, not just once, but over and over, until wisdom becomes your reflex, not your rescue. Power is not in loudness, it's in control. The world teaches us to speak louder, to interrupt, to fight back, to defend our pride, to prove our point. But wisdom whispers, silence is a strategy, not a weakness. You don't always have to react. You don't always have to explain yourself. You don't always have to respond right away. Sometimes the wisest move is to wait, to observe, to feel the emotion, but not be ruled by it. Proverbs 17:27 says it clearly. The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered. Let that sink in. Wisdom doesn't scream. It doesn't overtalk. It doesn't chase attention. It calculates. It listens. It watches before it acts. This is where true strength lives, in the space between stimulus and response. Napoleon Hill called it self-control and described it as the master key to every other virtue. Self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. If you don't control what you think, you can't control what you do. And when you can't control what you do, you end up saying things you regret, burning bridges you'll need later, turning moments of learning into battles of ego, and sabotaging your own peace in the name of temporary relief. But the wise person understands this. Just because you feel it doesn't mean you say it. Just because you're provoked doesn't mean you explode. Just because you're right doesn't mean you need to win the argument, because winning an argument and losing your peace is still a loss. Proverbs 29:11 backs this with force. Fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. Think about that in real life. The person who answers calmly when disrespected. The leader who listens while others shout. The parent who disciplines without yelling. The friend who offers presence instead of performance. That's real power. And guess what? It's rare. Because most people confuse reaction with strength. They think being loud is being heard. But being loud without purpose is just noise. And noise doesn't change lives. Clarity does. Calm does. Conviction does. That's what makes a person unforgettable. Not their volume, but their presence. So, train your tongue. Hold your words until they serve, not sabotage. Turn your silence into a weapon, not a wound. Use your emotional energy to build, not burn. Remember, you don't need to prove your power. You need to practice it. Because in the end, the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who could speak, but chooses wisdom instead. You were never meant to live by default. You were meant to lead your life by design. The world will always try to write your story for you. It will tell you who you are based on where you were born, what you can achieve based on your past, how far you can go based on your failures. But here's the truth. God gave you power, not just to survive, but to shape, to build, to transform. That power doesn't begin with the economy. It doesn't begin with your job title. It doesn't even begin with your education. It begins with your mind, with your tongue, with the decisions you repeat when no one's watching. Proverbs has shown us that wisdom isn't just about information. It's about application. It's not just what you know, it's how you live. And Napoleon Hill echoed this with fire. Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when it is organized into definite plans of action. So here's your question. What are you doing with what you know? You now know the power of your thoughts. You understand the impact of your words. You see how daily discipline outweighs sudden bursts of motivation. You recognize the danger of haste and the strength of patience. You feel the difference between wealth that fills your soul and wealth that drains it. So now what? Will you just listen and move on? Or will you act? Because this message, this wisdom, is only the beginning. Transformation doesn't come by watching. It comes by walking. Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. James 1:22. In other words, faith without action is fantasy. Belief without movement is denial in disguise. So plant the seed today. Write the vision. Reframe your inner dialogue. Eliminate distractions. Show up with intention. Speak with clarity. Choose integrity over shortcuts. Build something that lasts, not just for yourself, but for generations. And remember, you don't need to see the entire staircase. You just need to take the first step in faith, and then another. Napoleon Hill believed that definiteness of purpose was the beginning of all achievement, and Proverbs shows us that wisdom is the lamp that lights that path. So stop waiting for permission. Stop looking back. Stop doubting the call in your spirit. You have everything you need to begin. The wisdom of Solomon, the focus of discipline, the fire of purpose, the voice of faith, the silence of inner power, and the grace to grow, even when it's hard. So go, lead, build, speak, live, and let your life become a living proverb, a testimony of what's possible when truth meets action.